So let's face it, a lot of cards currently exist in the game right now and are extremely unfair and should get banned. On the flip side, a lot of older Yu-Gi-Oh cards used to be completely unfair but are completely irrelevant now and could actually get unbanned and wouldn't really change anything to the game. So my goal today is to try to figure out whether or not these cards should come back into the game and would they change anything, and of course I will try to remain as objective as possible instead of just giving my opinion. Anyways, before going any further, please do me a little favor right here and smash the like and subscribe button. There you go, you're a legend, I appreciate you, and now let's get right into it. Alright, so first things first, I think we can all agree on the fact that Tidal and Red Ox can all come back at 3 alongside every other Dragon Ruler 3 and wouldn't change anything to the game. The thing about the Dragon Rulers is that they all have 3 effects, but you can only use 1 effect per turn and only once that turn. Therefore, they are inherently balanced because even though you can play 12 Dragon Ruler monsters if they're all a 3, you're only really using 4 effects maximum. Okay, sure, a monster effect that would revive itself back from the graveyard by banishing 2 cards and then that would lead to like a Draco Sack or Big Eye used to be broken 10 years ago. But come on, that's a joke now. And the only effect that sets apart some Dragon Rulers from the other would be the in-hand effect, and Tidal and Red Ox definitely have the best ones. Tidal is a Foolish Burial and the Red Ox is a Monster Reborn. There is only one small problem though. They don't even have that much synergy with Dragon decks themselves. The only competitive Dragon deck that I can think of right now is Dragon Link, and that deck just plays like light and dark dragons. Sure, Tidal would be good in Mermail decks because you can pitch Dragoons and then get an effect and then Foolish a card, but like who cares? And Red Ox on the other hand doesn't really have any true applications. Again, you can discard an Earth monster and then revive back anything from the grave, but like come on, at this point just play Monster Reborn. And yeah, nobody plays that card in the first place for a very good reason. But yeah, Dragon Rulers aren't what they used to be back in the days. Anyways, next up is a card that triggered a lot of people on my short, and it is Chicken Game. I want to make it very clear that regardless of how you slice it, Chicken Game is not what you can call a good card. Oh, and by the way, this is not my opinion or anything, this is reality, and I will be explaining this right now. So Chicken Game has always been viewed as extra copies of Upstart Goblin, a card that was good for the majority of its existence. When Chicken Game was released in the TCG, the card pretty much gave you 3 extra upstarts in a way, so it would increase the probability of drawing a 3-of in your opening hand by roughly 5%. So clearly this card was really good in slower formats, so back in the days, because it increased your speed and consistency and allowed you to dig into your good cards really quickly. And what made Chicken Game arguably better than Upstart Goblin was the fact that it was a field spell and Terraforming used to be a 3, so you could actually go and search the Chicken Game off of Terraforming or Pseudo Space. So in other words, you kinda had like 9 extra upstarts in your deck. So assuming that you were playing 3 Upstart, 3 Terraforming, 3 Chicken Game, 3 Pseudo Space, and 3 Into the Void, you basically played like a 25 card deck. So this made the odds of drawing a 3-of go from 33.76% to 50.43%, which is insanity. This is in no way fair because it gave combo decks that used to be kind of inconsistent so much consistency that if they were winning the dice roll, they were always popping off. Now, whether or not they were actually true FTK decks running Chicken Game, this is irrelevant because Chicken Game was especially played in real decks. So yeah, everyone could benefit off of Chicken Game and the extra consistency, not just the Degenerate decks. Alright, so I just spent a lot of time explaining why this card used to be broken back in the days. Does this mean I'm contradicting myself since I'm also saying that the card sucks? Well, I mean, unless you have like an IQ under 0, this shouldn't be your interpretation because when I say that the card sucks, I'm talking about its current applications. So let me ask you a question. When's the last time you saw someone play Upstart Goblin? Exactly. Chicken Game is extremely comparable to Upstart Goblin and nobody's trying to play that card. Why, you may ask? Well, first of all, it conflicts with Pot of Prosperity, which is like 20 times better. I really don't believe I can think of like a single meta deck that is not playing Pot of Prosperity but would want to play Upstart Goblin instead. Danger Dark World is probably the only deck that absolutely cannot afford to play Pot of Prosperity because you're drawing so much and obviously it conflicts. But it's really not like you can say that Upstart changes much in that deck anyways. Danger Dark World is already very consistent, and if you are adding 3 copies of Chicken Game to the deck, it's not going to fix your main problem, which is losing to Droll and Logbird. So yeah, your weakness is the exact same, but you're not gaining anything in return. Yeah, nice deck. And honestly, Droll is seeing way more play now than it ever used to because it wasn't the case when Chicken Game was abused back in the days. Oh, and not to mention that if you get Drolled after drawing a card with Chicken Game, you probably just insta-scoop. You would have no momentum because you get Drolled very early on before even starting playing the game, and then your opponent can use your own Chicken Game to draw 1 card. And this is where we can safely say that Chicken Game is sometimes even worse than Upstart. It has the same strength of the card with an extra drawback of making your opponent go +1 if you pass on very little. And it's really not like you can say that it does much more than Upstart either. I mean, terraforming is now limited, so it's not like you can say that there's 6 chicken games for one upstart. Like, there's only one terraforming now, so it's not even like you can say that the appeal of playing pseudospace is still here. All the incentive to play chicken game is no longer here because you now have to worry about Drool way more than you had to before. On top of worrying about your own cards sticking on the field. If you are passing turn with your own chicken game still on the field, you have to make like either an FTK or like make such an unbreakable board that it doesn't matter. And again, unless you're relying on very inconsistent combos, this is wishful thinking. And again, even if Drool isn't a part of the equation, the microscopic consistency boost really doesn't change much. Prosperity is miles ahead, and if anything, that card should be on the ban list instead. Not to mention that chicken game is horrible in time because you're paying 1,000 life points. Honestly, the only players that are stubborn enough to disagree with whatever I said are the ones that honestly haven't even played the game seriously. It's also very easy to believe that the card is much better than it is if you are only playing on Master Duel, but that platform has like zero credibility. Best out of one, people play bullshit scam decks, and the format is completely different. So yeah, the card sucks, let's move on now. Glue-A-Bulb is horrendous and wouldn't change anything to anyone's life. As absurd as what I'm about to say is, I actually believe that Jet Synchron is slightly better right now. Jet Synchron is a level 1 fire, so you can actually abuse it with the Synphospol's engine, which actually does matter. Glue-A-Bulb is an earth though, so I will give it credit there. You can actually make Nature Beast, but it's not that relevant. Honestly, the card was only truly broken because of Needle Fiber, but that card's banned though, so who cares? And also, Glue-A-Bulb is a once per duel effect, so 1 copy or 3 copies doesn't change anything. If anything, if you play 3, you're gonna brick on it more often. Now, Fishborg Blaster is kind of like a combination of Glue-A-Bulb and Jet Synchron because it doesn't get banished when it leaves the field, and you have to discard a card, but it's not once per turn. You do need a lot of setup to make it very good, and you only can play it in like water decks, which is a little weird. Maybe only Mermails could play this card, but honestly, I don't even think they could abuse it anyways. However, if Fishborg Blaster was an Atlantean, it would definitely break the game. Anyways, Magispectre is getting more support in the next set, which means that Kirin should probably get unbanned. The card is extremely good, and I am very scared of Kirin myself, but at the same time, the Pendulum deck in today's day and age is already putting up unbreakable boards. Honestly, if they go first uninterrupted, it's not the extra Kirin that's gonna change anything whatsoever, and it's not like you can say that Kirin makes the going second any better. And as hilarious as this may sound, Kirin actually isn't even that good in its own deck. So it's obviously a very powerful card, but it's not gonna change that much again. Now, some people are comparing Kirin to Electrum, but I hard disagree. I actually think unlike Kirin, Electrum definitely cannot come back. Electrum actually increases the consistency and the power level and the resilience of Pendulums by a long shot. With Electrum, you're getting a search and a draw on the same chain, so you can actually play around Drool and Logbird if you know what you're doing. And they no longer have to rely on Beyond the Pendulum to play into Nibiru, which is insane for the deck. And they're definitely going to make more interruptions with like less cards, which is kind of ridiculous. So yeah, no thanks. Now, Cyberstein is a weird one because it is very degenerate. There's nothing very fair or healthy that you can do with it, but it's kind of hard to abuse now. It got banned because it's a level 2 monster, so when Sprite was around, people were milling it in Tier Elements and then reviving it back with Sprite Elf. But again, Cyberstein is bullshit. The card should not exist. It should have never been printed in the first place, and even without Elf, I still don't believe that Cyberstein should get unbanned. It probably wouldn't break the game that much if it were to come back to 1 though, honestly. Orchist Harper, on the other hand, is completely fair, definitely can come back to 3, honestly, wouldn't change that much, as long as Mermaid stays banned. If Orchist is played as a pure deck, I think it's completely fine. I don't really want Orchist to be played as an engine, though. And I'll probably trigger a lot of people here, but I actually do believe that Heavy Storm is much healthier than Duster. So Heavy Storm destroying your own back row has a higher likelihood of being detrimental rather than beneficial. That has only Unchained could take advantage of that, and that's only if they open like 2 traps or like the continuous spell in the trap. Otherwise, who cares, seriously? I genuinely believe that Duster should have never gone unbanned because they should have tested the waters with Heavy Storm instead. Either way, I feel like we could have all the back row removal in the world, and against trap decks it wouldn't even matter because they're barely trap decks anymore. Okay, now is Perform H Plushfire okay to unban? So my issue with Perform H Plushfire is that it's not once per turn, and as long as you can keep destroying it over and over, you can generate more level 4 bodies on the board. And then you could go into Trap Tricks or Flesia so that when your opponent drills you or Nibiru's you can negate that. And I definitely do not see a world in which Perform H Plushfire and Electrum coexist because they interact in a really disgusting way. Like, imagine if Plushfire was around when Metal Foes were a thing in 2016. Yeah, completely insane. Alright, next up is That Grass Looks Greener. So it's actually funny, but Infernoid is not even close to being the best deck to be able to abuse that card. Usually I only see Grass being played in like good stuff decks in the OCG. Like, I've seen more Adamancipator deck lists play That Grass Looks Greener than like Infernoids or Lightsworn. Oh, and the argument that left arm can search it if it's just at 1 is completely irrelevant because nobody wants to play left arm because if you get ashed, you extend the handshake. However, that was not a case at first because That Grass Looks Greener came out in Raging Tempest in 2017, whereas Ash was the next set in Maximum Crisis right after. Also, Fairy Tale Snow is the best thing that you can mill with That Grass Looks Greener, and that card is banned now, so who cares? And imagine activating Lawn Mowing and then your opponent change Shifter. That's kinda rough, huh? Anyways, Masterpiece is a card that I kinda want back, but for obscure reasons. I don't care about Shu Draco being able to play it. It honestly changes nothing to my life, but at the same time, I don't think that they should get it back because Shu Draco is the kind of deck that shouldn't exist. It's a stun deck, or at least it's played as a stun deck, and it allows bad players to win against good players. But I do like Masterpiece and Shu Draco Metal Foes, which is one of my personal favorite decks of all time. But honestly, my opinion on the matter is completely irrelevant, as I do believe there are no good reason to unban this card right now. It's not like Shu Draco was randomly getting more support anytime soon, unlike Magispectre with the new support, and that might explain why Kirin might actually come back. Masterpiece wouldn't necessarily ruin the game, because there are a lot of outs to it, honestly. So honestly, it can probably come back, as it can only be played in like 2 decks, and those decks are mediocre at the moment. Now, if the World Chalice Justiciar is Denglong 2.0, but at the same time much stronger if you're willing to play the bricks. This card isn't realistically played in good decks, and unless you're playing it in World Chalice, it always feels very, very weird. Obviously, the ceiling level of this card is off the charts because it turns on FTKs. But again, none of these combos are real, and you're not gonna see them in real tournaments because they lose to like any hand shop, and they play bricks like crazy, like I said. Lavalval Chain is kind of fine because we already have Beatrice that pretty much does the same thing. Because of the fact that they have the same effect, I really can't see a way Lavalval Chain can be much, much better than Beatrice. Like, at best, it's just easier to summon, but it's not any better. And the pool of rank 4 monsters nowadays is so incredibly good that it's not even like you can say that Lavalval Chain is gonna make every other card useless. The card is extremely powerful, but I actually think we can experiment with it. Alright, now let's stop the cap, and let's stop pretending like Wind-Up Carriers and Mighty cannot get unbanned. Like, people right now are not even complaining about Dark World, and that deck can easily hand loop you for 5 cards. So what makes Wind Up any better? Well, actually nothing, because Dark World is actually much better going second anyways. So yeah, Wind Up Carriers and Mighty is totally fine to come back because nobody's gonna be playing Wind Ups anyways. And Zodiac Barrage can also come back because all the best things that you can do with the card are no longer relevant. Wow, you're destroying a card on your field to summon a Garnet from your deck. Nice deck, bro. As long as Rat stays limited and Broad Bowl and Drancy are still banned, I think the card is completely fair. Like, even the 3, that's what I'm saying. Alright, now Sixth Sense is more of a troll card than a real card, but it definitely can be abused. So the card is either guaranteed to mill a lot and draw a little, or the other way around, so draw a lot or mill a little. Drawing 5 or 6 cards with this card is not fair whatsoever, which is the reason why I don't really want this card to come back. The sporadic aspect of this card doesn't make it super fair, and obviously if you're lucky, then you're basically invincible with it. And even though it feels like a random Saki 1-of, in Labyrinth it's going to be pretty broken. You can easily search it out with Lady, or you can reset it back with the Lovely, and you can recopy the effect with Transaction Rollback. So yeah, now fun. Anyways, Trap Dust Shoot is pretty much identical to a Pointer of the Red Lotus, except that it's maybe a little less good. Well, maybe not less good, but it has more limitations because it can only rip out a monster and only when your opponent has 4 or more cards in hand. But look, there is nothing healthy about ripping a card from your opponent's hand, especially when you're going first and you already have an unbreakable board. So no thank you, I will pass on Trap Dust Shoot because, again, it's pretty much like a Pointer of the Red Lotus and that card is already banned. As for Self-Destruct Button, the card obviously completely sucks, but at the same time, it will ruin the game because it will create more draws in the game. And draws in Yu-Gi-Oh! Are complete garbage, they definitely mess up the system, and they are not welcome. Now, the last card I wanted to cover was the Simorgh Link 3. The card got banned initially because of the Windbearer statue, but now that card is banned, so I think Simorgh is actually kind of fine. Okay, big deal, your Link 3 monster can summon Apex Avion to negate 1 card. Cool story, bro. An Omni Negate is always much healthier than like Vanity's Emptiness, so honestly, I don't really care too much. Anyways, that's all I had for this video. I could make a part 2 of this video if you guys are interested, so let me know in the comment section below. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys very soon. Peace.